Dot and Bubble is the 5th episode in Series 14 of Doctor Who. It's set in the world of Fine Time, a pastel colour utopia where citizens navigate their daily lives through augmented reality bubbles. These giant slug-like creatures begin killing the inhabitants, and the Doctor tries to step in to save people. However, the security systems won't allow him access, and so he has to rely on the help of Lindy Pepper-Bean, a young woman at the centre of the crisis whom he talks to through her bubble. But she and her peers ultimately reject his help, revealing the underlying prejudices masked by their cheerful, insular world. This episode's effectiveness lies not only in its narrative or visual metaphor, citizens literally live in a bubble, but in the sophisticated way it engages the viewer's racial awareness. It gently encourages audiences to rationalise or to excuse Lindy's behaviour until they reach the point where this just becomes untenable. And that threshold will differ for each viewer, making the moral impact of this deeply personal. When Lindy first interacts with the Doctor, she's very defensive and dismissive, yet framed by the softness of her environment and her seemingly innocent demeanour, audiences are inclined to justify her behaviour. When she's overwhelmed, she's frightened, she's unfamiliar with the Doctor. But these intrinsic excuses are precisely what the episode interrogates. It draws attention to the subtle ways in which racial bias is normalised and excused, particularly when presented in a socially palatable form. Rather than relying on overt expressions of racism, this episode employs microaggressions and dog whistles and implicit exclusion. Lindy never voices explicitly racist beliefs, yet her continued mistrust of the Doctor, her preference for the incompetent guidance of her peers, her sense of entitlement, and the colonial language about taming and oming the wilderness like her ancestors did, all contribute to a clear, racialised power dynamic. And the twist of this episode is not narrative, but ethical. It's the slow dawning recognition that Lindy is not simply a passive product of her environment, but an active participant in systemic exclusion. And as viewers come to this realisation, they're forced to reckon with their own interpretive journey. The excuses they made for Lindy's actions are exposed for what they are: subconscious efforts to avoid naming racism. And mainstream media frequently depicts racism in these binary, exaggerated forms. We get these very overtly malicious figures as antagonists, and this tendency allows audiences to position themselves comfortably as not racist. But Dot and Bubble challenges that comfort by demonstrating how racism often operates through politeness and fear and social conformity. Even those firmly committed to anti-racism may find themselves failing to recognise or respond to prejudice when it's embedded in a likeable or a familiar figure. What distinguishes this episode's social commentary is how it doesn't specifically moralise or rely on allegory. Instead, it turns the gaze back on the viewer. The twist is not Lindy is racist. The twist is aimed at the audience. It's the more unsettling question of, why did it take me so long to realise Lindy was racist?